Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I am your co-host, JP John Boss from the Two-Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is the distinguished doctor himself, Mr. Lavie Marg. Lavie, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, John. Even if I wasn't constantly promoting my doctoral degree every weekend on social media, there would be signs like my articles that I've been pumping out
Yes.
and getting some good jogs in. And thanks to you and the author of Beyond Nitro, I had a great hour jog throughout town this morning.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love that. Guy Evans, obviously, I've known him for a while. What a great author, man. He's perfect as far as putting that content and putting that stuff together. But he's an easy interview, too. I mean, I love interviewing him. He's the best.
Yeah, if you had 25 hours in the day, John, I would say a weekly podcast would be quite appealing.
Oh, hey, I'm going to reach out. I would love to do it, but let's see, where that could possibly lead. Now, also, let's talk about the wrestling business, not just the podcast world. Let's talk about in-person wrestling. Let's talk about VFW halls. Let's talk about the Margolins. What is going on here? What were you doing?
Yeah, so geographically speaking, I'm in the part of the Bronx that borders Westchester. I'm from Yonkers, and Yonkers has been having a couple of pro wrestling shows recently, specifically Victory Wrestling, which is usually based in Long Island. They did a show in Yonkers in a VFW hall, and of our nuclear family of four, three of us chose to go, my wife and my son. So the show was what you'd expect, a lot of fun, a lot of up and comers, one WWE ID talent, but it really spoke especially to my son of the importance, I would say, of developing like pro wrestling fans and affinity, meaning that, like, and I'm sure people have done studies and I actually want to look into this, like for people that have been to baseball games, like does it make them bigger fans of baseball, or can they just watch on TV, become fans and never go to a game, that sort of thing. With pro wrestling, as we've talked about, especially WWE, it's getting more expensive and it's rare to go. So many places aren't being served. And my son, who's like the perfect pro wrestling age, 10 years old, like he was completely engaged, like just a huge smile. He loved it. At first, he was like surprised that I could yell at the bad guys. And then within 20 minutes, he was yelling. And there was a wrestler with a gimmick where they throw candy to the crowd, and he threw it back. And I had to explain to him, they could throw it to you, but you can't throw it at them. But he had a great time, and he is really looking forward to going back.
I feel like wrestling, you got to be there. Like my son is now a bigger fan because we went to the shows. You know what I mean? Like that's how you build up that fandom. I think you got to go to the arena. You got to go to the shows. You got to go to the VFW if you will.
Yeah, and an important distinction, and again, for those that are following for a while, separately, both John and I took our sons to the WWE holiday show, and my son was very happy, but he did say that he liked this a lot more.
Wow.
Just being in the front row, like to him, there wasn't like he asked right before it started, is Bianca Belair going to be here and so on, and I
Right.
really felt bad disappointing him, but like he didn't really care. He was just like thrilled. So I said, like he was kind of like saying, like, you don't even need to take me to WWE anymore. But I was sort of like, well, if the ticket pricing is ever right or whatever, like there is something to having good seats where there's a spectacle to it. So it's all about it. But I think the independent scene like picks up a lot of the slack, and it's good to see that either directly or indirectly WWE is supporting that, so much,
Right.
especially with the ID program and talents being able to float in and out more than they had, in the past.
So obviously you went to that show. You've been to the holiday show. Would you consider going to Saturday night's main event to possibly see the Goldberg retirement match?
Yeah, it's on my mind. A summer going to Atlanta for Saturday Night Show isn't the easiest, and so on, and financial considerations. But if there was ever a time where I would do something like this, like I haven't been so into like Goldberg's returns, like you would think like I'd be all about it, but I don't know, something about it. I loved like years ago now. It feels more modern, but when he like shocked Brock Lesnar with that win, that was really cool. I actually
Yeah, that was
bought the
awesome.
pay-per-view, but I'm not like, I haven't been like, oh, I have to see Bill Goldberg every time. But like to me, that's something where like the last of my childhood favorites or whatever, like, that would have been really cool. Again, I think we were talking about 2.5 years ago, unfortunately, with what happened in Israel, it wasn't viable, but that there was going to be a show, and then that fell apart for completely different reasons. But Goldberg did say that he wanted to do a show in Israel. Actually, that might have been an easier sell to my family, but definitely, but definitely Atlanta is on the mind. So stay tuned, folks.
We don't do a lot of WWE talk, but since he's now a free agent, what's the deal with R-Truth? What's next for Ron the Truth Killings?
Yeah, I think it depends on the 90-day non-compete. If there is one, we don't know. We haven't seen him like hit the scene or whatever. But if he does not have one and he can like participate, I think it's sort of like a gift to competitive brands, but also the independent scene. Like usually what we'll see with like talents is that like the first like 6 months, 9 months, they're really hot. Like you can see a discernible change like for an independent show in attendance. So like I have no idea if this is possible, but for example, like GCW running the Brooklyn Cyclones by Monty's Park in Coney Island, like this is someone that everyone that's a casual pro wrestling fan knows. Speaking of Saturday Night's main event, right? He just main evented with John Cena. Like that would make a discernible difference. Like TNA Slammiversary, we'll talk about it. Their tickets are actually going backwards in sales. A little bit of a technicality there. Or like the Northeast Wrestling. So you have that as like one thing. You also have like those runs, like with, obviously you have a history with TNA where, he spent, I think 7 years there, sort of in between WWE. That would be, something really interesting. NWA, like championship run and so on. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there's a lot of opportunity for him. He's older as an athlete. At 53, he doesn't look it at all. But he's still, I don't think he's had years where he's done really well, but I don't think he's had like, certainly 7-figure years, and he's still going to need to work, I would assume, or speculate in some capacity. But I think in the next 2 years, like these could be good earning years for him.
Oh man, no doubt he's gonna kill it out there. Now maybe we go the opposite direction. Maybe we have something headed or trending downwards. Let's see what you have to say about it. What is the latest and what's going on in the business world of Triller?
Yeah, so Triller now, on everyone's minds. I think we were talking, whatever, it's not a race, but like basically we were talking about it in Fight Opinion. Zach Arnold was talking about it for a while, especially from the wrestling community. And then Dave Meltzer picked it up, and then everyone started talking about it. And then Brendan Thurston took it further and so on. But, certainly a company that seems to be, in trouble. Their stock is generally down now. I bought it a couple times, but I've never played it right. I haven't lost a lot, but like I've been scared, so I've jumped in and out quickly. But a couple of days ago, as we're recording this, they were at 69 cents. Today, you could have done very well if you bought it yesterday because they were at 77 cents. Market hasn't closed yet, so that could still shift around. So like people could make money, but like certainly if you bought the stock when it first came out, or you had the company before it merged, that would be a very big loss for you. Now, Brandon gifted me something that was out there, but I hadn't seen. I had only seen this for Fight to become eventually Triller Plus. Like sort of rolled into a number of acquisitions, but he found on Business Insider pretty quickly, the purchase price. So from Business Insider, Fight was acquired on July 30th, 2021, which, we generally knew. The acquisition cost $51.4 million, but a little bit more than half of that, 27.7, was in cash. Now, the other parts might end up, I wouldn't say necessarily being worthless, but $16.8 million in equity and $6.9 million in warrants, a form of stock compensation. So this is total speculation, and bankruptcy knowledge is totally out of my area of knowledge, but if a company has 16.8 million equity, what does that mean if Triller ever goes for bankruptcy? So just something interesting to consider. If anyone is a bankruptcy lawyer or expert, let us know. What else is going on? Well, there's a resignation from the board. Bobby Snarvesht, the company accepted his resignation. He didn't serve on the audit committee. There have been disagreements between Mr. Sarnavesht and the board. I think that comes directly from the company. Swinging back to pro wrestling, WXW had been airing regularly. Fightful was the first to report that they won't be broadcasting Drive of Champions due to concerns over Triller's financial state. They'll air it on YouTube. Now, people have talked about no word that necessarily they were late on paying WXW for anything, but it was listed as concerns. The Triller group put out a press release that no one seemed to notice, but I found it. So I'm not going to go through this fully. More of the wrestling somewhat related elements. So Triller completed strategic review and enters into accredited development phase, focusing on three things: social media, fintech, and combat sports. What the last two have to do with each other, I think, still remains a mystery. So let's see. So social media is related to the Triller app. Triller has undergone a significant and rapid transformation. The Triller app now offers one of the best product experiences ever compared to its peers. Content creation and so on. So the next is fintech. So this comes from sort of the merger. Management teams can integrate cutting-edge financial technologies into traditional financial service businesses. What that means, hopefully to their clients, it's helpful. And combat sports. So this one is an interesting one because there had been speculation that BKFC was up for sale and was really needed to keep the company solvent, not in so many words. BKFC is experiencing another banner year and is rapidly expanding its passionate global audience, spurred on by its visionary leader, David Feldman. BKFC has significant synergies with Triller's two other core businesses. In what way? And the company's working, well, I see the first, but the second. The company's working to support and explore additional revenue streams. Okay, so let me just skip ahead to the most important part. Let's see. Okay. Where'd that go? While current and future shareholders should anticipate a period of unprecedented rapid development, the company's exciting strategic blueprint marks not the beginning, but acceleration of the vision outlined. But where does it say? Okay. Sorry. Okay, so here we go. I almost gave up. The company believes 2025 will be another breakthrough year, and it is not exploring any scenarios that would affect its majority control of BKFC. So my summary of it is that we're all good, and we're not selling BKFC. So in response to a tweet from Brandon Thurston on May 28th, Triller has missed not only its quarterly report, but also missed putting its annual report. The company's latest findings suggested as serious financial issues. Brett Lauderdale of GCW, of course, had an interesting take that Triller and Triller TV Plus, which is what Fight was, operate as two different entities. For those worried about prior purchases or the few subscriptions, I wouldn't get too worried. My intuition, and only my intuition, tells me positive news is imminent. So my thoughts on that is that they could be separate entities, but they're all under the parent. So if the full ship goes down, everything that's attached to it does too, or the assets are sold off or whatever happens. So even if one unit may be successful or not experiencing the same issues, you would have to be concerned overall. So now people are starting to speculate on if Triller is sold, who may be a buyer. So I put out a quick survey that had a moderate amount of responses. So I had DAZN, ESPN, CyberAgent, and Anthem. So 50% said DAZN, which makes the most sense because their businesses are most similar, especially the Triller TV Plus. Anthem would be sort of like a stretch that got next. ESPN would sort of be only like attaching it like if they need to increase their overall like subscription numbers. And Cyber Agent, I'm not sure if anyone got what I was getting at if they didn't see my article or listen to us 2 weeks ago. So interestingly, although like I sort of different perspective suggested as well, that they were each speculating that maybe Tony Khan were to buy it. One kind of seeing it as like a place for, sort of like to integrate the Ring of Honor services into. But I think about it like, right, they're distributing the, of course, you know, the AEW through HBO already. But another person had like a business concept that they see AEW as a creditor, like sort of like in a bankruptcy, a secured creditor. So like we have no idea if they owe AEW money. So the only thing we know is that AEW did not distribute its last pay-per-view through, of course, Triller, but it did have the replay, and there's the AEW Plus. But to speculate, if they are behind on money to AEW, they'd be one of the biggest companies that they would be, and that AEW, I'd imagine, you know, the way that they would set up their contracts as opposed to an independent would be a secured creditor. So they just may be in a good position to get it. Pure speculation. Now, just thinking about the market overall, right? Like you have these services that come and go, and they've burned people and so on. It hasn't all been negative. I think mostly it's been positive for the industry in terms of distribution. But like, could we see a return to do-it-yourselfers, especially for promotions that can get buzz? So Noah Buckingham Reed, Noah Braun Line on X wrote very interesting RevPro numbers from April. RevPro on demand saw a 161% increase in visitors to the website on the week Mercedes Moné defended her belt at high stakes. Estimated over 4.8 thousand plus unique visitors, plus an estimated 1.5 to 2,000 in the venue. So, John, what do you think? You know, if, and we don't know, if Triller were to fall, do you think we'd see like a return to do-it-yourselfers? Do you think like other streamers would try and do more of a roll-up? Would just be things like be in chaos for a while?
I have a feeling everyone would just do it themselves. Like it would go back to DIY, and then everyone would have their individual service, and we'd have kind of maybe a little bit of a mess again, like you said, maybe a little bit of chaos. But I do see it going back to DIY. Tony Khan to think about buying and purchasing not only for ROH and maybe even AEW content if he can get away with it, you know, without, you know, Bleacher Report or WBD having to be involved. That would be great, because then he can kind of shore up some of those other indie promotions that WWE is tying into, and he can kind of take that away from WWE. So that could be a strategic strategy, almost planning for the future there for Tony.
Very interesting. And I think like the DIY would be really interesting, like to reapproach it now, because I think the last time it was really like more of a thing, maybe it was like pre-COVID, and of course we've come a lot further in terms of like hosting services and tools that people would have. But like sometimes like promotions that can draw a few hundred and have a few thousand followers on X or YouTube or Facebook or whatever, they're like, oh, okay, like if we could get just 10% of these people to pay for a service, and it's very hard for people to like, you know, put their money where their support is, even if they would do it in other ways, like buy a ticket or buy a t-shirt, but like to subscribe to a service is a whole thing altogether.
For sure. Now, what the heck is going on in the world of TNA wrestling?
So there was like this wonderful snippets of information that was dropped by MMA Draw, sort of like by the mysterious Blake Avignon, who is somebody in the industry who is using a nom de plume, as they would say. So it was in the context of this like TKO rights and whatever, but they dropped these tidbits that were spectacularly interesting as it relates to TNA, but no one else really covered it. Beyond that, I shared it, but now I just wrote a long-form article on lioncupjobsearch.com about it, which I'm going to go over. But let's talk about these quotes. Sources confirmed WWE acquiring a controlling 51% stake in AAA is part of NBC Universal's long-term strategy to fill the post-Peacock WWE gap. Similar overtures have also been made to Anthem for TNA. So also, the CW, despite signing NXT to a 5-year, $125 million deal, is likely done shopping. So there was a little bit of like word confusion there. The move doubled their previous rights spend, and multiple insiders say it leaves little room to pursue further premium future potential WWE wrestling content down the line with AAA or TNA. So I was thinking like, well, if it leaves little room, why name promotions? But I corresponded with the author on X, and he said he did mean a little room. And when you think about it, with WWE spotlighting TNA so much on the CW, like what's it all for? So let's talk about that. 1, WWE may be interested in acquiring controlling interest in TNA. And 2, CW has some room to pursue additional pro wrestling programming like TNA. Based on what has been known or speculated about past WWE television distribution deals, WWE has exclusivity for its programming on platforms or its final say if similar programs can air, as we know historically. WWE has been given a fair amount of airtime to TNA on the CW in recent months and has even made one of its contracted wrestlers the champion. One could say they are priming the audience to accept TNA programming. While WWE is in a formal relationship with TNA, opening the door to the Anthem-owned company would not make sense without a long-term stake in the financial rewards. A stake would have to go beyond a finder's fee type of agent agreement, as that would be short-term thinking. If WWE does not ultimately control the distribution, Brad Schwartz, who, by the way, brought TNA to Pop, and when he got the job at the CW, I just sent him a message on LinkedIn, or had a comment, why don't you consider pro wrestling? So I'm taking credit for that. May say to himself one day, I can get more TNA programming, maybe with 40% of the viewership, but at 20% of the cost. A deal like the one WWE has undertaken with AAA makes the most sense. Gain a controlling stake in the company, expand your programming right fees, with the CW as the anchor domestically, and drive the cost down. WWE would be in the position to right-size office staff and shift to WWE employees. Talent under contract would be mostly comprised of those already under NXT deals who would need the reps, and tapings could come off the road. Maybe not the NXT training center for variety's sake, but full sale or reasonable southeastern rotation of venues. This is probably not related. I think it just wasn't getting the results that they sought, but it was a good credibility builder at the beginning. Inside the NFL has been canceled by the CW. So what do you think about, John, the prospects of the CW having TNA wrestling one day?
I feel like that kind of is teasing it a bit. Like they're on there so much, they're kind of slowly but surely on NXT a lot. The champion is from WWE, and he's now the TNA champion. So I feel like that's definitely possible, definitely plausible, and maybe very likely that that's what they're headed towards.
So other TNA notes. So Len Asper and Anthony Ciccione, who is still at the company, gave a presentation and answered questions at the CRTC Commission hearings, and I was willing to listen. While generally not pro wrestling centric, Asper referenced TNA more than any other properties Anthem owns, and there were some interesting snippets. First of all, their distribution in Canada, Sportsnet, has an influence on business, including adding to its credibility. It's also a driver of events. On Sportsnet, I don't know why he used this term, but he said there's a quid pro quo expectation that TNA does not distribute the same programming free in the market, but it does have the TNA Plus premium service available. By being on Sportsnet in Canada, Asper has seen an increased appeal in India for TNA wrestling programming. I knew there was a significant Indian population in Canada, but it's 5%. So interesting that maybe the word spreads, come check this out. We know TNA is already strong in India, but interesting to see that it had more influence. In terms of the recent event in Brampton, which we'll get into, he referenced 3,000 to 4,000 people would be at the event, which is in line with other things. Anthem states that programming like TNA wrestling does not benefit from tax incentives. maybe other tax incentives, but not from those of the CRTC, which is provided to scripted programming. So I always thought about like them running in Canada that there's some sort of tax benefit. So going to this event, TNA Under Siege. So PW Insider first said it was sold out and that people were being turned away and whatever, but then they had on-site notes. I attended last night. It was 20 minutes from my house and $42 Canadian for an admission, especially with the WWE prices. Okay, but I don't know if TNA claimed to sell out, but there were empty seats in the upper areas of the stands and on the hard cam side. They were empty all night, so it wasn't a case of folks leaving. While I was waiting outside, I was approached by two staffers who asked if I was there. They had in their hand what looked like passes, and one guy asked me, "Can you get maybe 8 of your buddies to come down?" So it seems they were trying to fill the place up. And then, everyone's always so quick to be like, sell out. Even, I don't know if Matt Hardy's always quick to say this, but I took some screenshots, and yes, there was plenty of upper level seats. Matt Hardy did tweet out, "Thank you for an amazing sold out crowd." Okay, whatever, that is what it is. Roughly 3,000 people. So that seems to kind of check out from, my eyeballing it, from other reports from the building and so on. So that's the pass. So as we're recording this, is a double shot in Tempe, Arizona. I'm not sure of the geography, but people were like, why are they there so close to, AEW having run their big pay-per-view just a couple weeks ago. So tickets distributed, 1,145 with a current setup of double that, a building of 4,541. The next day, 857 tickets, same potential setup. In a couple of weeks, June 20th and 21st, they're in the Pittsburgh Market, Moon Township, in a building that's just under 4,000. The first night, 929. The next night, 1,000. So not bad numbers for TNA, but they're running big buildings. Now, this one is sort of funny, depending on your perspective. Slammiversary, we're expecting like some forward momentum. So WrestleTix had it that tickets came back on the map. So rather than small increase week to week, which we were seeing 30 to 60 tickets, 99 tickets came off the map. So 27, 22. So I don't know, John, do you think it's like time to pull out stakes here with Slammiversary or keep going?
I feel like, I don't know, you maybe ramp it up, put some TNA guys on the card or something. They got to start ramping this bad boy up. We got to get close to that 4,000 number. We're going backwards.
Yeah, we're gonna need like John Cena soon. I don't think they're gonna give away his 22 final remaining matches or whatever it is to TNA, but maybe they're open to a separate deal. But it never seems to swing, that way. And people keep saying, "Oh, okay, they haven't announced the main event." I'm assuming, it's that feud that's going on now, but I don't think anything has been finalized. So the other thing to look for is that after Slammiversary, there's no other events on the list. Last time people were getting nervous, maybe they're not going on the road anymore or anything like that. And probably I was speculating on that too. But what do you think the lesson learned is now that there's a new management team with venues generally outside of Slammiversary that are between 3,000 and 5,000? They're doing good numbers for TNA, better than they've done. Some of them are spectacularly good, but should they go back to 2,300 Arena, the Nashville studios, kind of keep it small, or keep this up, keep this running with these 4,000 seat minor league hockey venues?
I'd mix in both. I definitely would do 2,300 Arena again and, mix in the smaller arenas, but definitely still hit the big ones, but maybe not as much.
So somebody asked Carlos Silva, when do we get more live Impact? And he said they're more coming. I like live Thursday Impact. This was interesting in terms of fast distribution because this is something that TNA is very strong with and very well distributed. Navio Networks has signed a multi-year agreement to serve as the exclusive sales agency for their portfolio of fast properties, including TNA and Fight. Navio will oversee ad operations and programmatic monetization. They'll also assist with distribution strategy and streamer carriage expansion as Anthem seeks to broaden reach and improve revenue performance. So the revenue I could see, I'm not sure where else they can go. So that'll be interesting to see how that turns out. And I like this idea. just because, as been talked about, Access TV is somewhat limited, and it sounds like their shows are popping now for them. So for the summer, you can watch TNA for free on Fridays, the encore presentation at 6 p.m.
Now, as far as GC Dub's going on, what is the latest with GC Dub and all the shows they've got coming up?
Yeah, an interesting thing to note is that GCW does seem to be able to like have that balance of like different different brands depending on who they are and who's the market, meaning that they can represent themselves one way in a mall and at the Cyclones game weeks back as compared to deathmatch wrestling. So but deathmatch, sometimes we think like, will it ever go away or whatever, but you could see like it's some of their most successful shows that they have, like June 7th and 8th in Atlantic City. The first 7 rows, I think that's a max setup in the garage. Just GA available. Cage of Survival is picking up as well. Basically, first 4 rows are gone, and 5th row and beyond. So really good double shot, as generally expected for them. June 20th in Little Rock, Arkansas. That's pretty slow. Just the first row is gone. In Kansas City, that's very slow as well at the moment. Front row still available. The Webster in Connecticut seems like tickets really picked up. I'm not sure of how many reserved were available, but just GA and standing room only are available for that. July 11th in Dallas. Seems like things are picking up. 4th row and beyond still available. GCW at the Ballpark, 3rd row and beyond still available. So beyond the July 19th, just to look at what shows they are rather than ticket sales at the moment. So there's, of course, the triple shot in Japan at the end of July. There's the quadruple shot in Rutherford, New Jersey. Which is interesting. You have Bloodsport bringing back Emo Fight. You have the Juggalos. Interesting to see like how that picks up with the Juggalos, because I think the Cage of Survival includes the Juggalos, but I haven't seen like a hot angle. Like we want him to be safe and not go beyond the athletic stuff, but you really want to see, I don't want to see, but like, for an angle like this, you really want to see like, the Juggalos really like getting Brett Lauderdale messed up, like you need some heat on this angle. I'm keep waiting for it to come, so that it could cook and then like peak where hopefully everyone is safe, but like where the GCW crew is coming in like champs, 3 a.m. in Thornville, Ohio, and there's batteries being thrown. We need some good visuals there. But I'm sure they, thought of it and so on. So interesting to see. Back to Detroit on September 12th, Indianapolis on the 13th in a park, Bloodsport in London, and then, of course, Anchorage, Alaska in October with some stuff to be filled in, obviously, between now and then. Okay, sorry, John. that's the GCW.
What about MLW? What's going on with them?
Yeah, so just quickly in terms of their 4 shows that are on the books, June 26th, that should be a sellout in Queens is regular. Fightland is until September. Last time they did it. Great attendance there. Still plenty of tickets remaining, especially in the second row and beyond. October, back to Long Beach, or what they call the LA market. October 4th looks like tickets are moving along pretty well for that already. In November, back to the Chicago market. Front row and beyond still available.
Now, as far as my favorite topic and yours, because we're going to go all over the place, but do a little here and there.
Yeah, and some more prominent promotions than usual in the here and there. There's just not a lot of news about each of them, so I just combined them. So NWA, this may be nothing, this may be something. So I asked Grok, where is NWA 77? And they told me to Chase Park on August 30th, 2025. But they didn't have any additional information except that there's already a URL on the NWA website that lists some. Well, it's a dead link when you go to it, but I guess at some point there was something that could be mined from it. So we'll see if Brock is correct. In regards to women's wrestling, some of which is Joshi, some not. Walker Stewart, I just want to give him a kudos as he continues to grow his career. First, in the independent scene in Texas, and then to New Japan, and now a Stardom, but also now a Stardom employee as the director of global PR and communications. So that's always cool to see people continuing to make a living out of the business behind the scenes. Sukiban, they're doing really well for the Anime Expo show that they're doing in LA. The VIP is already sold out. GA. Basically ringside VIP. The others is ADA compliant, obviously required and important, is sold out as well, but other tickets remain. But I think that they'll do well. They claim that every other show that they've run has been sold out. I know in New York it was when I went to the first show. And John, thank you for the heads up on this. So interesting thing. WoW has their first ever collectible card game. So interesting to see, I don't know as a brand if WoW is strong enough to carry things where people are like, oh, I love WoW, I have to get this card game. Or if, to the card game aficionados that they're like, oh, okay, this looks cool. I'm not sure what WoW is and let me buy, this game and find out or whatever. I think it was called Super Show, the game that we talked about many years ago on this podcast with the guest, the owner. I think it's interesting just to see from a licensing perspective, what we could learn. I think if we see more products, similar products, it obviously did well. If it's quiet on that front, maybe it didn't.
Love it. Great stuff, Lavie. Covered a lot in a good amount of time here. So let's wrap it up and head towards the plugs. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out just follow me at 2Man Power Trip. That's it. How about you, Lavie?
Yeah, so follow me on X, Lavie Marg, LAVIE MARG. Check out my long form articles on lioncubjobsearch.com. Especially since I got my doctoral degree, they're coming up pretty frequently. Why WWE showcasing TNA wrestling on the CW may lead to controlling ownership and a CW deal. So learn about that. We are the official business podcast of PW Ponderings. We're distributed by the Creative Control Network.
All right. Thank you, Lavie. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next week for a little business of the business podcast.